Hello everyone, welcome to Mr. Anastomosis. Now, today we will be discussing about the brachial plexus. Now, the brachial plexus consists of roots, trunks, divisions, cords, and branches. And the anterior primary rami of spinal nerves C5, C6, C7, C8, T1. This will constitute the root of the brachial plexus. Now, sometimes in prefixed plexus, the C4 spinal nerve root may also participate. Okay, and in postfixed plexus, the T2 spinal nerve may participate. Alright, now let's move to the origin. Now, before going to the origin, I must highlight on the fact that in prefixed plexus, sometimes the contribution by C4 is large and C5 is present. Okay, now in that case, T1 is small and T2 is often absent in the formation of the plexus. Similarly, in the postfixed plexus, the contribution by T1 is large, T2 is always present, C4 is absent, and C5 is reduced in size. Now the roots join to form trunks as follows. Okay, now I will make the brachial plexus, okay, in a flow chart manner, but you must remember this sequence. First there will be the roots, then the trunks, then the division, then the cords, then the branches. Okay, now let's draw the brachial plexus. Now I will draw the general brachial plexus, not the prefixed or the postfixed ones. Okay, so C5, okay, C6, C7, C8 and T1. Okay, so this is the roots of the brachial plexus. Okay, so let me name it as the roots. So these are the roots of the brachial plexus: C5, C6, C7, C8, T1. Now after making the roots, see, now this C5 and C6 root will join and form the upper trunk of the brachial plexus. Okay, the C5 and C6 root will join to form the upper trunk of the brachial plexus. Now from C7, now it will alone form the middle trunk of the brachial plexus, and C8 and T1. Okay, C8 and T1 spinal roots will form the lower trunk of the brachial plexus. Right? Now these will be named as the trunks. Okay, so this is the trunk. Right? So this is the upper trunk, the middle trunk, and the lower trunk. Okay, so I hope it's clear. Now after we have completed the roots and the trunk, our next one is the divisions. Now each of this trunk will form two divisions, one anterior division and one posterior division. So let's make them. So this is the anterior division of upper trunk and this is the posterior division of the upper trunk. Similarly, if we make, now this is the anterior division of middle trunk and this is the posterior division of the middle trunk. Now in that way, see, this is the anterior division of lower trunk and this is the posterior division of the lower trunk. Okay, so let me name it. So this is the anterior division, this is the posterior, this is anterior, posterior, anterior and posterior divisions. Okay, now after we are done with the divisions as well, so these are the divisions. Okay, now when we have done the divisions of the respective trunks, now let's move to the cords. Okay, now there are three cords: the lateral cord, the medial cord and the posterior cord. Now let's talk about the lateral cord. Okay. Now the lateral cord will be formed by the anterior division of the upper trunk, okay, along with the anterior division of the middle trunk. Okay, so this is going to form the lateral cord of the brachial plexus. Okay, now after the lateral cord is done, so let's name it. So this is the lateral cord. Okay, now let's make the posterior cord. Now the posterior cord will be made by the posterior division of the middle trunk. Next, along with the posterior division of the lower trunk, okay, and also the posterior division from the upper trunk. Now these three posterior divisions will unite to form the posterior cord. Okay, so they will form the posterior cord of the brachial plexus. Okay, now the anterior division of the lower trunk, this is going to form the medial cord of the brachial plexus. So this is going to form the medial cord of the brachial plexus. Okay, so first we learnt about the roots, which is participating in the formation of the brachial plexus. Then we learnt about the trunks. Then we learnt about the divisions, and then we learnt about the cords which are forming the brachial plexus: the lateral cord, the medial cord, and the posterior cord. Okay. Now this portion is very much important, so you must remember this well. Okay. Now let's form the branches. Now the lateral cord, to learn about the branches of the lateral cord, you must remember this mnemonic. See, LML. Okay, LML. This is for the lateral cord. Now LML stands for the lateral pectoral nerve. Okay, the musculocutaneous nerve, and the lateral root of median nerve. Okay, so let me form it over here. So from this lateral cord, there will be a branch to the lateral pectoral nerve. Okay, now there will be the main branch, which is the musculocutaneous nerve. Okay, now this is the main branch. Now one more branch will be there. This is the lateral root of median nerve. Now the median nerve has two roots, lateral root and the medial root. Now we will come across the medial root. See, to learn about the medial cord, you must remember this mnemonic, that M for U. Okay, so there will be 4 M, 1 U. So this is the mnemonic for medial cord, and this was the mnemonic for the lateral cord. So M, U. Now what this abbreviation actually stands? Okay, see, M stands for the medial pectoral nerve. This M will stand for the medial root of median nerve. This M will stand for the medial cutaneous nerve of arm. This M will stand for the medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, and this U stands for the ulnar nerve. I hope this is visible. So to learn about the branches of the medial cord, you must remember this mnemonic that this is M for U, 4M and 1U. Okay. Now let's draw the branches. See, first we'll form the branch which will lead to the formation of the median nerve. So this is the main median nerve, which supplies most of the muscles in the anterior aspect of the forelimb. Okay, so this is the medial root of median nerve. Okay. Now there will be one more branch which is the ulnar nerve. Now this is the ulnar nerve. Now this is the main branch of the medial cord. Okay, just like the musculocutaneous nerve was the main branch of the lateral cord, the ulnar nerve is the main branch of the medial cord. Now along with this, there will be three other branches. 1, 2, 3. Now these three branches are respectively the medial pectoral nerve. Okay. Next is one is for the arm and one is for the forearm. And these nerves are the medial cutaneous nerve. Okay. So I have zoomed in the camera to make this more clear. See, so this is the medial cord and it has 5 branches: the medial pectoral nerve, the medial cutaneous nerve of arm, the medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, the medial root of median nerve, and the ulnar nerve. Okay. And similarly, lateral cord had 3 branches: the lateral pectoral nerve, the musculocutaneous nerve, okay, and the lateral root of median nerve. Now let's make the branches of the posterior cord. Now to remember the branches of the posterior cord, you must remember this mnemonic as ulnar. Okay. Now what does it stand for? Ulnar. Now U stands for upper subscapular nerve. L stands for lower subscapular nerve. N stands for nerve to latissimus dorsi. Okay. So this was nerve to latissimus dorsi, which is also known as the thoracodorsal nerve. A stands for the axillary nerve, and R stands for the radial nerve, which is the main branch. Okay, now let's draw it over here. So this will give the branch to radial nerve, okay, which is the main nerve of the posterior cord. Okay, there will be a branch to the axillary nerve. There will be one branch to the upper subscapular nerve. A branch to the lower subscapular nerve. And a branch to the thoracodorsal nerve, which is also known as the nerve to latissimus dorsi, because it will supply it will innervate the latissimus dorsi muscle. Okay, so we are finally done with the branches of the respective cords: the lateral cord, the medial cord, and the posterior cord. Okay. Now there are some additional branches starting from the roots. Okay. Now the first branch will be from the C5 nerve root, which is the dorsal scapular nerve. Okay. So this will directly originate from the C5, which is the dorsal scapular nerve. Okay. Now there will be one more branch which will be formed by the C5, C6 and C7 nerve roots. So C5, C6 and C7 nerve root. This three nerve root will give origin to a long nerve. Okay, and this is named as the long thoracic nerve. Okay. Now this long thoracic nerve gives supply to the serratus anterior muscle. Okay, I will come across the nerve supply in a subsequent video, but for now you just remember this parts. Okay. Now from the upper trunk there will be two important branches. One is the suprascapular nerve. Suprascapular nerve. The other one will be the nerve to subclavius muscle. Okay. Now this point, particularly over here, this is one important point which is known as the Erb's point. Okay, because Erb's point, in this point there is innervation from 6 nerves. Okay. Now generally the C5, C6, the suprascapular nerve, the nerve to subclavius, the anterior division, posterior division. So this is like a central core point of all these nerves. Okay, and is known as the Erb's point, and it has its own clinical significance. Okay, which generally contributes to Erb's palsy. I will tell you about Erb's palsy in one subsequent video, but you must remember that the Erb's point is very important to be remembered in case of this upper trunk. Great. Now similarly in the lower trunk there is one point known as the Plexus point. And which has a clinical significance surrounding the Plexus palsy. Okay. So this was the whole brachial plexus which I just taught you. Now the brachial plexus lies in the neck region. Okay. Now to be more specific, it lies in the neck between the two muscles, which is the scalenus anterior and the scalenus medius. Okay. Now the scalenus anterior and scalenus medius carries the axillary sheath from prevertebral fascia, okay, surrounding the brachial plexus. Now the cord and branches, okay, the cord and branches of the brachial plexus. So I didn't mention the cords, right? Here, see, these are the cords and these are the branches. Now the cords and the branches of the brachial plexus are generally named according to the second part of axillary artery. Okay, so with reference to the second part of axillary artery, now these are named. Now one important portion which was left is the blood supply to the brachial plexus. Okay, now the blood supply to the brachial plexus is generally through the vertebral artery, the thyrocervical trunk, okay, the suprascapular and transverse cervical arteries supply blood to brachial plexus. So these arterial supply to the brachial plexus is generally the lifeline of this important plexus. Okay, the vertebral artery with hydrocervical trunk, the suprascapular and transverse cervical arteries supply blood to the brachial plexus. Okay, now these arterial blood supply are generally the part of the subclavian artery, which I will discuss when I will teach you about the subclavian artery. So I hope you like this video about the brachial plexus. Okay, so this was all about today. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will bring the next video on the nerve supply to the muscles. Okay, all these muscles which we learned in the branches of the respective cords, that will give you a more clear idea about the importance of the brachial plexus. So see you in the next video.